I reserved our favorite table at the Rose Garden for our 8th wedding anniversary. What I didn't expect was for my wife Lisa to walk in with her personal trainer, introduce him as her plus one, and then spend the entire evening holding his hand while I sat there like a complete fool. But here's the twist nobody saw coming, including her lover's wife, who happened to be our waitress that night. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The morning of our anniversary started like any other Thursday in Portland. Rain tapped against the windows of our Pearl District apartment while I watched Lisa apply her makeup in the bathroom mirror. She was humming some tune I didn't recognize, taking extra care with her appearance. I thought she was getting dolled up for our special dinner that evening. "You seem excited about tonight," I said, adjusting my tie for another day at Thompson Construction. The family business had been struggling lately, losing 3 major contracts in the past month. The stress was eating at me, but I figured our anniversary dinner would be the perfect distraction. Lisa paused her mascara application and met my eyes in the mirror. Something flickered across her face. Guilt, maybe, or excitement. At the time, I couldn't tell the difference. "Of course I'm excited, Jake. 8 years of marriage deserves celebration, right?" Her voice carried a strange tone, like she was convincing herself more than me. I'd known Lisa for 12 years total, married for 8. We met during college at Portland State, where she was studying marketing and I was finishing my business degree to take over Dad's construction company. She was the girl everyone noticed when she walked into a room. Long auburn hair, bright green eyes, and a laugh that could light up the darkest Oregon winter day. I still remember thinking I was the luckiest guy alive when she agreed to go out with me. Back then, Lisa used to say I was her hero. When her car broke down sophomore year, I spent an entire weekend fixing it in my dad's garage. When she got food poisoning from the dorm cafeteria, I brought her homemade soup and stayed by her side until she felt better. She used to tell her friends I was the most dependable man she'd ever met. "Jake takes care of everything," she'd brag. "I never have to worry about a thing when he's around." Those words felt like a lifetime ago as I watched her in the mirror that morning, though I didn't understand why yet. I kissed her cheek and headed to work, spending the day coordinating with subcontractors and trying to salvage what remained of our client relationships. Dad had built Thompson Construction from nothing 30 years ago, and watching it crumble under my watch felt like failing everyone who'd believed in me. The pressure was immense, but I kept telling myself that at least I had Lisa. At least, we had our solid marriage to anchor us through the storm. Around noon, my phone buzzed with a text from Lisa. "Can't wait for tonight. I have a surprise for you." I smiled, thinking maybe she'd planned something special. Perhaps she'd noticed how stressed I'd been and wanted to make our anniversary extra memorable. Lisa had always been thoughtful that way, or so I believed. The Rose Garden held significance. For us. It's where I'd proposed 3 years into our relationship, down on one knee in their private dining room while a string quartet played her favorite song. The manager, Steve, had become a friend over the years, always ensuring we got the best table whenever we celebrated milestones. I'd called him personally to reserve the same booth where I'd proposed, wanting everything to be perfect. As closing time approached at the construction office, I found myself genuinely excited for the first time in weeks. Maybe this anniversary dinner was exactly what Lisa and I needed to reconnect. We'd been distant lately, ships passing in the night. She'd been spending more time at the gym, coming home later, claiming her new personal training sessions were helping with stress. I'd been working longer hours, trying to keep the business afloat. We barely talked anymore beyond logistics about bills and schedules. I arrived at the Rose Garden 15 minutes early, wanting to ensure everything was set up perfectly. Steve greeted me warmly at the entrance, his usual professional smile brightening when he recognized me. "Jake, good to see you, my friend. 8th anniversary, right? I've got your table ready, complete with champagne service and those white roses Lisa loves." The private dining room looked exactly as I'd hoped. Soft lighting, our favorite corner booth, fresh flowers, and a bottle of Dom Perignon chilling in an ice bucket. I'd specifically requested everything Lisa had mentioned loving about our proposal night. This was going to salvage not just our anniversary, but maybe our entire relationship. I checked my watch. 7 o'clock sharp, just as we'd planned. 7:15 came and went, Then 7:30. At 7:45, my phone buzzed. Running a bit late. Start without me if you want. Order the usual. Start without me? On our anniversary? I ordered a whiskey instead of champagne and tried to calm the growing unease in my stomach. Lisa had never been late to important events. She was usually the one reminding me to be punctual. At 8:15, I heard Lisa's distinctive laugh echoing from the main dining room. Relief flooded through me until I realized she wasn't alone. Through the glass partition, I could see her at the hostess station with a man I didn't recognize. He was tall, muscular, with dark hair and the kind of confident posture that suggested he spent considerable time in front of mirrors. They were standing close together, her hand resting on his arm while they spoke to the hostess. Too close for casual acquaintances. The way she looked up at him, the way she touched his sleeve when she laughed. I'd seen that body language before. It was how she used to look at me. Steve appeared beside my table, his expression carefully neutral. "Mr. Thompson, your wife is here. She's requesting to bring a guest to your private dining room." My mouth went dry. "A guest?" "She says it's a surprise for your anniversary." The door to our private dining room opened, and Lisa walked in, wearing the red dress I'd bought her for last year's anniversary. Behind her followed the man from the hostess station, and I immediately understood why he looked familiar. I'd seen him at Elite Fitness Gym during the few times I'd picked Lisa up from her training sessions. "Jake, honey." Lisa's voice was artificially bright, like she was performing in a play. "I have the most wonderful surprise for our anniversary." She gestured to the man beside her, who extended his hand toward me with a confident smile. "This is Ryan Martinez, my personal trainer. Ryan, this is my husband Jake." I stood slowly, my mind struggling to process what was happening. My wife had brought another man to our anniversary dinner. Not just any man, a man she'd been spending 3 hours a day with for the past 6 months. A man who was looking at her the way I used to look at her. "Nice to finally meet you, Jake," Ryan said, his handshake firm and his eye contact unflinching. "Lisa talks about you all the time." The confidence in his voice suggested he knew exactly what he was doing here. This wasn't some innocent misunderstanding or social awkwardness. This was deliberate. "Ryan's been such a huge part of my transformation this year," Lisa continued, sliding into the booth next to me while Ryan took the seat across from us. "I thought it would be wonderful for you two to finally get to know each other properly. After all, he's become such an important person in my life." Important person in her life. On our anniversary. In our special place. I sat back down mechanically, my whiskey suddenly tasting like ash. "I see. And this is your surprise? Isn't it great?" Lisa's hand found Ryan's across the table, her fingers intertwining with his like it was the most natural thing in the world. Ryan's been helping me discover so much about myself lately. Parts of me I didn't even know existed. The innuendo wasn't subtle. Neither was the way Ryan's thumb traced circles on her palm while maintaining eye contact with me. "Lisa," I said quietly, "could I speak with you privately for a moment?" "Oh, Jake, don't be silly. We're all adults here. Ryan doesn't mind if we talk openly, do you, Ryan?" Ryan leaned back in his chair with the ease of a man who'd already won. "Not at all. I think honesty is always the best policy in relationships." The audacity was breathtaking. He was sitting in my anniversary dinner, holding my wife's hand and lecturing me about honesty in relationships. "How long has this been going on?" I asked, abandoning any pretense of politeness. Lisa's cheeks flushed, but she didn't let go of Ryan's hand. "Jake, you're being dramatic. Ryan and I have developed a close friendship through our training sessions. There's nothing wrong with having meaningful connections with people." Meaningful connections. I repeated the words slowly, watching Ryan smirk at my wife's obvious deflection. "Your wife is an amazing woman, Jake," Ryan interjected. "She's been telling me how lonely she's been lately, how disconnected she feels in her marriage. I've just been providing some companionship and support during a difficult time." The manipulation was expert. He was simultaneously insulting our marriage, positioning himself as Lisa's savior, and making me look like the villain for questioning their relationship, all while sitting at our anniversary dinner. "Lonely?" I turned to Lisa. "You've been lonely in our marriage?" For the first time since arriving, Lisa looked uncomfortable. "We've both been distant lately, Jake. You're always working, always stressed about the business. When's the last time we really talked, really connected? She wasn't wrong, but the timing of this conversation, with her lover's hand in hers, felt like a calculated attack designed to maximize humiliation. So you decided to connect with Ryan instead? He listens to me, she said defensively. He makes me feel appreciated, valued. When's the last time you made me feel that way? Ryan nodded sympathetically, playing his role perfectly. Sometimes people grow apart. It's nobody's fault, really. The important thing is being honest about what we need. I looked around our private dining room. The roses, the champagne, the careful attention to every detail I thought would make Lisa happy. Then I looked at my wife holding another man's hand, while telling me I didn't appreciate her. You're right, I said finally. Honesty is important, so let me be honest. This is the most disrespectful thing anyone has ever done to me. Lisa's grip on Ryan's hand tightened. Jake, you're overreacting. Ryan is my friend. I wanted you to get to know him because he's important to me. If you can't handle that, maybe we need to examine why. The gaslighting was flawless. Somehow, my objection to my wife bringing her lover to our anniversary dinner was being framed as a character flaw on my part. Important to you, I repeated. How important? Ryan and Lisa exchanged a look that answered my question more clearly than words ever could. The look of two people sharing an intimate secret, completely excluding the third person at the table. Jake, Lisa began, her voice taking on a patronizing tone. I know this is difficult for you, but sometimes marriages evolve. Sometimes people's needs change. And your needs have changed. I've been trying to tell you for months that I'm not happy, but you're always so focused on work, on the business problems, that you never really hear me. I thought back over the past months, searching for these conversations she claimed we'd had. Yes, she'd mentioned being stressed. Yes, she'd said she felt disconnected sometimes. But she'd attributed it to work pressures, to the natural ebb and flow of long-term relationships. She'd never once suggested she was considering stepping outside our marriage. So this is my fault? It's nobody's fault, Ryan repeated, clearly enjoying his role as relationship counselor. People just want to feel desired, appreciated. Lisa deserves to feel those things. The implication was clear. I wasn't making her feel desired or appreciated, but he was. Our waitress approached the table, a petite woman with kind eyes and a professional smile. Good evening, folks. Welcome to the Rose Garden. I'm Monica, and I'll be taking care of you tonight. She began setting down menus, but paused when she got a good look at Ryan. The color drained from her face, and her hands started trembling slightly. Ryan? Her voice was barely above a whisper. Ryan's confident demeanor cracked for the first time all evening. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us now. Back to the story. Monica? What are you doing here? I work here, she said slowly, her eyes darting between Ryan and Lisa's intertwined hands. The question is, what are you doing here? On a date? When you're supposed to be at your mother's house tonight? The tension at our table shifted completely. Lisa looked confused, finally releasing Ryan's hand. I'm sorry, Lisa said carefully. But do you two know each other? Monica's laugh was bitter and sharp. Know each other? We're married. The silence that followed was deafening. Ryan's face had gone pale. Lisa looked like she'd been slapped. And I found myself staring at this petite waitress who had just dropped a nuclear bomb on our already explosive anniversary dinner. Married? Lisa's voice cracked on the word. Monica nodded, her professional composure completely shattered. 3 years in September, though apparently my husband has been too busy to mention that detail. Ryan opened his mouth to speak, but Monica held up her hand. No, don't. Not here, not now. I'm working. She turned to Lisa with a mixture of pity and anger. I don't know what he's told you about his situation, but let me save you some trouble. He's not separated, he's not divorced, and he's certainly not available. Lisa looked like she might be sick. Ryan, you told me you were single. It's complicated, Ryan started, but Monica cut him off again. It's really not complicated at all. You're a married man having an affair. She looked at me with genuine sympathy. I'm so sorry this is happening to you, sir. I had no idea Ryan was. I thought he was just working late at the gym. The irony was almost funny. While I'd been worried about losing my wife to her personal trainer, that same trainer's wife had been worrying about him working late. Neither of us had imagined the truth. Monica, Ryan said desperately, we can talk about this at home. This isn't the place. The place? Monica's voice rose slightly before she caught herself and lowered it again. You brought your mistress to my workplace, Ryan. You're having your affair at the restaurant where I serve tables to pay for our mortgage. And you want to talk about appropriate places? Lisa stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. I need some air. She rushed out of the private dining room, leaving Ryan, Monica, and me in the most awkward silence of my life. Ryan stood to follow her, but Monica stepped into his path. Sit down, she said quietly. You've done enough damage for one night. To my surprise, Ryan sat back down. There was something in Monica's voice, a quiet authority that even a man like Ryan couldn't ignore. Monica turned to me, her professional mask sliding back into place despite the tears threatening to spill from her eyes. Sir, I'm going to need a few minutes to compose myself before I can properly serve your table. Would you mind if I sent another server over? I looked at this woman, this stranger who was experiencing the same betrayal I was, just from the opposite angle, and made a decision that would change everything. Actually, I said, would you like to sit down? It seems like we have more in common than our respective spouses realized. Monica glanced toward the main dining room where Lisa had disappeared, then back at Ryan, who was staring at his hands like a scolded child. I'm working, she said softly. Not anymore, you're not, came a voice from the doorway. Steve, the manager, had obviously witnessed enough of the drama to understand the situation. Monica, take the rest of the night off, with pay. I'll cover your tables. Monica looked between Steve, Ryan, and me, then slowly pulled out the chair. Lisa had vacated and sat down. This is surreal, she said quietly. Welcome to my anniversary dinner, I replied, raising my whiskey in a bitter toast. Ryan finally looked up from his hands. Look, this got out of hand. Monica, I never meant for you to find out this way. How did you mean for me to find out? Monica asked. Or were you planning to keep lying indefinitely? It's not that simple. It really is, Monica interrupted. You're either married to me or you're not. You're either faithful or you're not. You're either honest or you're not. Nothing about this is complicated except the web of lies you've been spinning. I found myself studying Monica as she spoke. She had the kind of quiet strength that only comes from dealing with real hardship. Her wedding ring was simple, probably not expensive, but she wore it with pride. Her uniform was neat despite the emotional bomb that had just exploded in her face. Everything about her suggested a person who faced problems head-on instead of running away from them. The contrast with Lisa couldn't have been starker. How long? Monica asked Ryan. What? How long have you been seeing her? Ryan glanced at me, then back at Monica. 6 months. Monica nodded slowly, like she was processing a puzzle piece she'd been looking for. That explains the new clothes. The gym memberships for clients who never existed. The late nights that became later and later. Monica, I can explain. No, she said firmly. You can't explain. You can apologize, you can beg, you can promise to change, but you can't explain why you chose to betray our marriage instead of talking to me about whatever was wrong. Lisa reappeared in the doorway, her makeup slightly smudged from crying. She looked at Monica sitting in her chair, at Ryan's defeated posture, at me watching the whole scene unfold with morbid fascination. I think I should go, Lisa said quietly. Yeah, Monica said without looking at her. I think you should. But Lisa didn't leave. Instead, she came back to the table, standing behind Ryan's chair like she was staking a claim. Ryan, tell her, Lisa said. Tell her about us. Tell her what we mean to each other. Monica and I both turned to stare at Lisa. The audacity was breathtaking. My wife was demanding that her married lover publicly declare his feelings for her in front of both their spouses. Lisa, Ryan said quietly. Maybe we should… Tell her! Lisa's voice cracked with desperation. Tell her that what we have is real. Tell her that you're going to leave her for me. The silence stretched out until Monica started laughing. Not hysterical laughter, but the kind of bitter amusement that comes from witnessing something so absurd it circles back to being funny. "Is that what he promised you?" Monica asked Lisa. "That he was going to leave me?" Lisa's chin lifted defiantly. "We're in love." "How romantic," Monica said dryly. "And when exactly was this grand exit supposed to happen? Because 3 hours ago, Ryan was telling me he'd be home by 11 so we could watch our Thursday night shows together." Ryan looked like he wanted to disappear through the floor. "You don't understand," Lisa continued. "Ryan and I have a connection that goes beyond just physical attraction. We understand each other on a deeper level." "Deeper level," Monica repeated. "Is that what we're calling it?" I watched this exchange with the detached fascination of someone observing a car accident. My wife was defending her relationship with a married man to that man's wife at our anniversary dinner, while the man in question sat there saying nothing. "Lisa," I said quietly, "do you hear yourself right now?" She turned to me with wild eyes. "You don't understand, Jake. You've never understood me the way Ryan does." "And how does Ryan understand you?" "He sees my potential. He believes in me. He makes me feel alive again. By lying to his wife and sneaking around behind my back? Love isn't always convenient, Jake. Sometimes it's messy and complicated and—" "Stop," Monica said firmly. "Just stop talking." She stood up slowly, her composure remarkable given the circumstances. "Ma'am," Monica said to Lisa, "I don't know what fantasy my husband has been selling you, but let me give you some reality. Ryan has promised to leave me exactly 14 times in the past 3 years. 14 different women. 14 declarations of true love. 14 times he's come crawling back begging for forgiveness." Lisa's face went white. "That's not true. Ask him," Monica said simply. All eyes turned to Ryan, who was studying his hands again. "Ryan?" Lisa's voice was small now. "Tell her she's lying." Ryan said nothing. "Tell her," Lisa demanded. "I can't," Ryan whispered. "Because it's true?" Lisa asked. Ryan nodded almost imperceptibly. The sound Lisa made was somewhere between a gasp and a sob. She looked around the table, at Ryan, who wouldn't meet her eyes, at Monica, who was watching her with a mixture of pity and disgust, at me sitting there with my untouched anniversary champagne. "This can't be happening," Lisa said to no one in particular. "It is happening," Monica replied. "And now you know what kind of man you've been risking your marriage for." Lisa's legs seemed to give out, and she sank back into her chair. "Ryan, you said you loved me." "I do," Ryan said weakly. "The same way you loved the other 14? Monica asked. Ryan had no answer for that. I looked around our private dining room. The roses, the champagne, the carefully planned romantic setting that had turned into the stage for one of the most humiliating nights of my life. But strangely, I wasn't feeling humiliated anymore. I was feeling something else entirely. Relief. For months, I'd been wondering what was wrong with me, why my wife seemed so distant, why our marriage felt like it was slowly dying. I'd blamed myself, blamed work stress, blamed everything except the truth, that Lisa had checked out of our marriage and into someone else's arms. But now I knew. And knowing, even when it hurt, was better than the constant uncertainty and self-doubt. "I think," I said slowly, "this anniversary dinner has been very educational for everyone involved." Monica looked at me with curiosity. "What do you mean?" "I mean, we've all learned some important truths tonight. Lisa learned that Ryan is a serial cheater who makes the same promises to every woman he meets. Ryan learned that his lies have finally caught up with him. And I learned that my marriage has been over for a lot longer than I realized." "Jake," Lisa said desperately, "we can work through this. We can go to counseling. We can—" "With what?" "Lisa, you just spent our anniversary dinner holding hands with another man, defending your relationship with him, and demanding he choose you over his wife. What exactly is there to work through?" She opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. I reached for my wallet and pulled out my credit card, signaling Steve, who had been hovering discreetly nearby. "I'd like to pay the check, please." "Sir," Steve said gently. "You haven't ordered anything yet." "Then I'd like to pay for the table reservation, the champagne, and anything else we've used tonight." Steve nodded and took my card. I turned to Monica, who was watching me with those kind, tired eyes. Monica, would you like to get out of here? Maybe grab some coffee somewhere quiet where we can both process what just happened. She looked surprised. You want to have coffee with me? I want to have coffee with the only other honest person at this table. Monica glanced at Ryan, then at Lisa, then back at me. I think I'd like that very much. Ryan finally looked up from his hands. Monica, we need to talk. No, Ryan. We needed to talk 6 months ago. We needed to talk before you decided to start another affair. We needed to talk before you brought your latest mistress to my workplace on their anniversary. What we need now is a lawyer. She stood up and walked around to my side of the table. Shall we go, Jake? I stood up and offered her my arm. We shall. As we walked toward the door, Lisa called out behind us. Jake, you can't just leave. This is our anniversary. We're supposed to work through problems together. I paused at the door and turned back to look at my wife sitting next to her married lover in the ruins of our anniversary dinner. Lisa, you brought another man to our anniversary dinner. A married man. You held his hand, defended your relationship with him, and asked him to choose you over his wife. The only problem we have is that it took me this long to understand what kind of person you really are. And with that, I walked out of the Rose Garden with Monica Martinez, leaving my wife and her lover to figure out their own mess. The Portland evening was crisp and clear, a relief after the suffocating atmosphere of that private dining room. Monica and I walked in comfortable silence for a block before either of us spoke. I can't believe that just happened, she said softly. Which part? Your husband's affair being exposed, or my wife defending said affair at our anniversary dinner? All of it. The whole surreal nightmare. We found a quiet coffee shop a few blocks away, the kind of place with mismatched furniture and local art on the walls. I ordered us both coffee while Monica found a corner table away from other customers. I should have known, she said when I sat down across from her. The signs were all there. I just chose not to see them. Join the club. Apparently, we've both been living in denial. Monica wrapped her hands around her coffee mug like she was trying to absorb its warmth. 3 years of marriage, and this is how I find out my husband is cheating. At his mistress's anniversary dinner with her husband. If it helps, this is also how I found out my wife was cheating. It doesn't help, but thank you for trying. We sat in silence for a few minutes, both processing the evening's revelations. Can I ask you something? Monica said eventually. After everything we just went through, I think we're past formal boundaries. What kind of person brings their lover to their anniversary dinner with their spouse? I'd been wondering the same thing. Someone who either has no conscience or someone who wanted to get caught. You think she wanted to get caught? I think Lisa has been trying to push me into ending our marriage for months. But she didn't want to be the one to pull the trigger. This way, she gets to be the victim. I'm the one who walked away, not her. Monica nodded thoughtfully. Ryan does that too. Creates situations where I have to be the bad guy, where I have to make the hard decisions so he can act like things just happened to him. How long have you known he was cheating? Part of me has suspected for a while, but tonight was the first time I had proof. You? In 6 months of subtle changes that I convinced myself were just stress or natural relationship evolution. Lisa started working out more, caring more about her appearance, coming home later. But she attributed it all to self-improvement and work pressure. They're good at explaining things away, aren't they? Masters of it. Even tonight, she tried to make it sound like bringing Ryan was some kind of gift to our relationship. Like I should be grateful she wanted to share her important friendship with me. Monica laughed bitterly. Important friendship. Is that what we're calling it? Apparently, along with meaningful connection and deeper understanding. Don't forget complicated situation, Monica added. That was Ryan's favorite phrase whenever I asked direct questions about his schedule. We talked for 2 hours, sharing stories about the lies we'd been told, the excuses we'd accepted, the red flags we'd ignored. It was therapeutic in a way I hadn't expected. Monica was intelligent, funny, and refreshingly direct. She didn't make excuses for Ryan's behavior or try to shoulder blame that wasn't hers. I have a confession, I said as we prepared to leave the coffee shop. What's that? This has been the best conversation I've had in months. Monica smiled. the first genuine smile I'd seen from her all evening. Mine too. Isn't that sad? Sad, but honest. And after tonight, I'm learning to appreciate honesty. We exchanged phone numbers before parting ways, both agreeing that we'd probably need someone to talk to who understood what we were going through. As I walked back to my car, I realized something surprising. For the first time in months, I wasn't dreading going home. I wasn't wondering what mood Lisa would be in, what excuse she'd have for being distant, what new way she'd find to make me feel inadequate. The uncertainty was over. The pretending was done. My marriage was finished, but somehow, I felt more hopeful than I had in a very long time. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Lisa's hand intertwined with Ryan's, heard her voice defending their relationship while sitting across from me at our anniversary dinner. The apartment felt different, somehow, like I was seeing it clearly for the first time in months. All of Lisa's recent changes made sense now. The new lingerie I'd found in her drawer that she claimed was for boosting her confidence. The mysterious phone calls she'd take. In the other room, the way she'd started locking her phone when she never had before. I made coffee at 5 in the morning and sat on our balcony watching Portland wake up. The rain had stopped, leaving the city looking washed clean and somehow more honest than it had the night before. My phone had 17 missed calls from Lisa and 23 text messages that progressed from angry to desperate to manipulative and back to angry again. I deleted them all without reading past the first few. The construction office felt like a refuge when I arrived at 7. My dad, Robert, was already there, which wasn't unusual. He'd been coming in earlier and staying later ever since our financial troubles began. Like sheer determination could somehow save the company he'd spent 3 decades building. "You're here early," he said, looking up from a stack of invoices. "How was the anniversary dinner?" I sat down across from his desk and told him everything. Dad listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker with each detail. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "That's the most disrespectful thing I've ever heard," he said finally. "What kind of woman brings another man to her anniversary dinner?" "The kind who wants out of her marriage but doesn't have the courage to say so directly." Dad shook his head. "Your mother and I had our rough patches over the years, but she never would have humiliated me like that. Never would have made me look like a fool in public." "I know, Dad. That's what made last night so clear. I kept trying to understand Lisa's behavior, trying to find ways to fix whatever was wrong between us. But you can't fix someone who's actively sabotaging your relationship. So what are you going to do?" "Divorce her, as quickly and cleanly as possible." Dad nodded approvingly. "Good. A man has to have standards, even when it costs him." Speaking of costs, I should probably warn you that this divorce is going to impact the business situation. Lisa's been contributing to our household income, and her family connections have helped us with some contracts. "Son, I'd rather lose every contract we have than watch you stay married to a woman who treats you like that. We'll figure out the business problems. We always do." That conversation with my dad reminded me why I'd always respected him so much. Robert Thompson was old school in the best ways. He believed in loyalty, honesty, and treating people with dignity. He'd built his construction company on those principles, and even facing bankruptcy, he wasn't willing to compromise them. Around 10 o'clock, my phone rang. Monica's name appeared on the screen. "Good morning," I answered. "How are you holding up?" "I've been better," she said, and I could hear the exhaustion in her voice. "Ryan didn't come home last night. I'm assuming he went to console Lisa after our dramatic exit." "Probably. Are you okay with that?" "Honestly, I'm relieved. I don't think I could have handled facing him this morning, but I do need to talk to someone who understands what I'm going through, and unfortunately, you're the only person who qualifies." "Unfortunately?" Poor choice of words. I meant it's unfortunate that we're both in this situation, not that you're unfortunate company. I found myself smiling for the first time since yesterday. "Would you like to meet for lunch? I could use some sane conversation myself. I'd like that. But can we go somewhere Lisa and Ryan definitely won't be? I'm not ready for round 2 of last night's drama." We met at a small diner on the east side of Portland, the kind of place that served honest food to working people and didn't pretend to be anything fancy. Monica was already there when I arrived, sitting in a back booth with her hands wrapped around a coffee mug. She looked tired but determined, like someone who'd spent the night making difficult decisions. "You look like you didn't sleep either," she said, as I slid into the seat across from her. "Not a minute. Too much to process." I keep replaying the whole evening, wondering if I could have handled it differently. Part of me thinks I should have been more dignified, less confrontational. "Monica, you found out your husband was cheating on you in the most public, humiliating way possible. If you'd been any more dignified, you would have been a saint." She laughed, a sound that was equal parts amusement and exhaustion. A saint wouldn't have enjoyed watching Lisa's face when I revealed Ryan was married quite as much as I did. "You enjoyed that?" "Immensely. Is that terrible?" "If it is, then I'm terrible too, because watching her realize she'd been lied to was oddly satisfying." We ordered food and continued talking, and I found myself genuinely interested in Monica's story. She'd been working as a pediatric nurse at Portland Children's Hospital for 5 years, a job she loved despite the emotional challenges. She'd met Ryan at a community volleyball league 3 years ago, back when he was working as a personal trainer at a different gym, and seemed genuinely committed to helping people improve their health. He was different then, she explained. More focused on actually helping his clients rather than using his position to meet women. Or maybe I was just naive enough to believe his act. When did things change? Gradually. He started taking on more private clients, working longer hours, becoming more secretive about his schedule. I thought he was just trying to build his business. And the other affairs? Monica's expression hardened. I suspected twice before, but I could never prove anything. Both times he convinced me I was being paranoid and jealous. He was very good at making me feel like the problem was my insecurity rather than his behavior. Gaslighting. Exactly. Last night was the first time I had undeniable proof, and even then, he tried to minimize it. Called it a complicated situation like that somehow made it less of a betrayal. I told her about Lisa's similar tactics, how she'd managed to make me feel guilty for working too much while she was building a relationship with another man. How she'd framed her distance and dissatisfaction as my failure to understand her needs. "They're cut from the same cloth," Monica said. "People who can't take responsibility for their choices, so they manipulate circumstances to make others responsible instead. The question is, what do we do now?" Monica set down her coffee and looked at me seriously. "I'm filing for divorce. I already called a lawyer this morning." That was fast. 3 years of marriage, and last night was the final straw. I'm not interested in counseling or trying to work things out or giving him another chance to lie to me. Some lines, once crossed, can't be uncrossed. I admired her certainty. I feel the same way about Lisa. 8 years of marriage, and she brought another man to our anniversary dinner. There's no coming back from that level of disrespect. "Have you talked to a lawyer yet?" "That's my next stop after lunch." Monica hesitated, then said, "This might sound strange, but would you mind if we used the same attorney? I think it might be helpful to have someone who understands both sides of this situation." It did sound strange, but in a good way. I think that's actually a smart idea. We're dealing with the same people, the same deceptions. Having coordinated legal representation might work to our advantage. We exchanged the contact information for Monica's lawyer, a woman named Sarah Chen, who specialized in divorce cases involving infidelity. Monica had chosen her specifically because she had a reputation for being thorough and unsentimental about protecting her clients' interests. After lunch, I drove straight to Sarah Chen's office. She was a small, sharp-eyed woman in her 40s, who listened to my story with the kind of professional attention that suggested she'd heard variations of it many times before. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly," she said when I finished. "Your wife brought her lover to your anniversary dinner, where they held hands and discussed their relationship openly in front of you." "That's correct. And this lover is married to another woman, who happened to be working at the restaurant that night." "Also correct. And your wife knew he was married?" "She claimed she didn't, but given everything else she lied about, I'm not inclined to believe her." Sarah made notes on her legal pad. "This is either the most brazen case of infidelity I've encountered, or your wife wanted to force your hand into ending the marriage." "That's what I think too. She's been unhappy for months but didn't want to be the one to file for divorce." "Well, She's gotten her wish. Oregon is a no-fault divorce state, so her infidelity won't directly impact property division, but the circumstances are so egregious that they might influence a judge's decision about spousal support. I don't want to drag this out with a messy court battle. I just want to end the marriage and move on with my life. That's admirable, but don't be too generous. Your wife humiliated you publicly and destroyed your marriage for another man. You don't owe her anything beyond what the law requires. Sarah walked me through the divorce process, explaining timeline and procedures. Oregon required a 90-day waiting period between filing and finalization, but we could start the paperwork immediately. She also recommended documenting everything I could remember about Lisa's behavior over the past months, in case we needed evidence of the affair's timeline. One more thing, Sarah said as I prepared to leave. Monica Martinez mentioned that you two have become friends through this situation. Be careful about that. What do you mean? I mean you're both vulnerable right now, both dealing with betrayal and anger and a lot of complicated emotions. It would be easy to confuse gratitude and shared experience with romantic feelings. We're just friends supporting each other through a difficult time. I'm sure that's true right now. I'm just suggesting you be mindful of how that relationship develops. Rebound relationships that start during divorce proceedings rarely end well for anyone involved. I appreciated her concern, but I wasn't worried about romantic complications with Monica. We were both too raw from our respective betrayals to be thinking about new relationships. What we had was a friendship built on mutual understanding and honesty, qualities that had been notably absent from my marriage to Lisa. When I got home that evening, Lisa was waiting in the living room. She'd been crying, her makeup smeared and her hair disheveled. For a moment, I felt a pang of the old sympathy that had kept me making excuses for her behavior for months. "Jake, we need to talk," she said, standing up as I entered. "I think we said everything we needed to say last night. Please, just give me 5 minutes to explain." Against my better judgment, I sat down across from her. "Explain what, Lisa? Explain why you brought another man to our anniversary dinner? Explain why you held his hand and defended your relationship with him in front of me? I know how it looked, but it's not what you think." "Then tell me what it was." Lisa took a shaky breath. "Ryan has been helping me through a really difficult time. I've been feeling so disconnected from you, so lonely in our marriage. He was just being a friend." "Friends don't hold hands at anniversary dinners, Lisa." I know it was inappropriate, but I've been so confused lately, so unhappy. I thought if you could see how much better I've been doing with Ryan's support, you might understand what I need from our relationship. The manipulation was textbook, making her affair about my failure to meet her needs, framing her betrayal as a learning opportunity for our marriage. "So bringing your lover to our anniversary dinner was supposed to be educational for me?" "He's not my lover." "Lisa, stop lying. It's over. I know about the affair. Monica knows about the affair. Ryan's wife confronted both of you in front of me. The lying phase of this conversation is finished." Lisa's composure cracked completely. "Okay, yes, we've gotten close. Closer than we should have. But it's not some sordid affair, Jake. We have a real connection. We understand each other. I'm sure you do, just like he understood the other 14 women he cheated on Monica with. That's different. What Ryan and I have is special. Special enough that you were willing to destroy our marriage for it? I wasn't trying to destroy our marriage. I was trying to save it. I thought if you could see how happy and confident I've become with Ryan's help, you'd want to be that kind of support for me, too." The rationalization was so twisted that I almost admired its creativity. Somehow, Lisa had convinced herself that publicly humiliating me with another man was an act of love designed to improve our relationship. "Lisa, do you hear yourself? You're saying you brought your lover to our anniversary dinner to inspire me to be a better husband. When you put it like that, it sounds terrible. It sounds terrible because it is terrible. It's the most disrespectful thing anyone has ever done to me." Lisa's tears started flowing again. "I never meant to hurt you, Jake. I love you. I've always loved you." "No, you don't. People who love each other don't humiliate each other in public. They don't hold hands with other people at anniversary dinners. They don't defend affairs in front of their spouses. It's not an affair. Ryan and I never—" "Stop. Just stop lying. I'm filing for divorce, Lisa. This marriage is over. You can't mean that. We can work through this. We can go to counseling. We can… With what? You've destroyed any trust I had in you. You've shown me that you're capable of unbelievable cruelty when you don't get what you want. What exactly is there to work through? Lisa fell to her knees in front of my chair, grabbing my hands. Please, Jake. I'll end things with Ryan. I'll never see him again. I'll do whatever it takes to earn your forgiveness. You'll end things with Ryan? Lisa, you demanded that he choose you over his wife last night. You told him to declare his love for you in front of both your spouses, and now you're offering to end things with him like that's some kind of sacrifice? I was confused. I wasn't thinking clearly. You weren't confused. You were making a choice. You chose him over me, over our marriage, over basic human decency. The only reason you're here now is because you found out he's a serial cheater who was lying to you too. Lisa's grip on my hands tightened. That doesn't matter. What matters is us. What matters is saving our marriage. Our marriage died. Last night, Lisa. When you walked into that restaurant with another man and introduced him as your surprise for our anniversary. I stood up, gently but firmly removing my hands from hers. I'm going to stay at my parents' house tonight. Tomorrow I'm meeting with a lawyer to start divorce proceedings. I suggest you find your own attorney. Jake, please don't do this. I'm begging you. You should have thought about that before you decided to humiliate me in public. I packed a bag while Lisa continued pleading from the living room. Her desperation was real, but it wasn't born from love or remorse. It was the panic of someone who'd gambled everything on a sure thing and discovered too late that the game was rigged. At my parents' house, I found my mother, Carol, waiting with a plate of food and a sympathetic ear. Dad had told her everything, and she was furious on my behalf. That girl has lost her mind, Mom said, setting the plate in front of me. I never thought Lisa was capable of such cruelty. Neither did I. I keep wondering if there were signs I missed, red flags I ignored. Maybe there were, maybe there weren't. The point is, she made her choices. You can't blame yourself for trusting your wife to act like a decent human being. My phone buzzed constantly throughout the evening, Lisa calling, texting, sending increasingly desperate messages about how sorry she was and how much she loved me. I turned it off after the 20th call. Good, Dad said when I told him about the lawyer meeting. Get this over with quickly and move on with your life. You're still young, still successful. Don't let one woman's bad choices define your future. That night, lying in my childhood bedroom, I thought about Monica. She was probably dealing with her own version of Ryan's desperate apologies and promises to change. At least we both had the clarity to see through the manipulation. My phone rang early the next morning. Monica's name on the screen. Good morning, I answered. How did your evening go? About as well as you'd expect. Ryan showed up at 3 in the morning, drunk and belligerent, demanding to know why I'd humiliated him in public. He said you humiliated him? Apparently, finding out your husband is cheating and confronting him about it in front of his mistress counts as humiliation. Who knew? The audacity is breathtaking. Did you let him in? I did not. I told him through the door that he could come back tomorrow when he was sober to collect his belongings, but that I didn't want to see his face again. How did he take that? About as well as a spoiled child takes being told no. Lots of shouting about how I was overreacting and how Lisa meant nothing to him and how all his other affairs were just mistakes. Other affairs, plural? Oh, yes. Apparently, last night's revelation loosened his tongue. He confessed to 5 different women over our 3-year marriage, not counting Lisa. Jesus, Monica. I'm so sorry. Don't be. I'm relieved to finally know the truth. It explains so much about our marriage that never made sense before. I told her about Lisa's attempted reconciliation the night before. Her claims that their relationship was just friendship and her offer to end things with Ryan. They really are cut from the same cloth, Monica said. Ryan kept insisting that Lisa pursued him, that he was just being a supportive friend who got caught up in something bigger than himself. Neither of them wants to take responsibility for their choices. Exactly. It's much easier to blame circumstances or claim they were victims of their own emotions. We talked for another hour, and I found myself looking forward to these conversations more than anything else in my day. Monica was intelligent, funny, and refreshingly honest about her emotions. She didn't try to minimize what had happened, or make excuses for anyone's behavior. "Can I ask you something personal?" she said before we hung up. "After everything we've been through together, I think personal boundaries went out the window. Do you think we're handling this the right way? Divorcing them so quickly, not trying to work things out? Do you want to work things out with Ryan? God, no. But sometimes I wonder if I'm being too harsh, too unforgiving. Monica, your husband brought his mistress to her anniversary dinner with her husband, where you happened to be working. Then he sat there while she demanded he choose between you and her. If that's not grounds for divorce, I don't know what is. When you put it like that, it does sound pretty cut and dried. It is cut and dried. They made their choices. Now we get to make ours." After we hung up, I spent the day at the construction office, throwing myself into work as a distraction from the emotional chaos of my personal life. Dad was handling the crisis with his usual steady competence, but I could see the strain in his eyes. Losing Lisa's income and her family's business connections was going to make our financial situation significantly worse. "We'll figure it out," he said when I brought up my concerns. "We always do. Your grandfather started this company with nothing but a truck and a willingness to work hard. If we have to rebuild from scratch, so be it." That evening, I met Monica for dinner at a quiet restaurant far from the Rose Garden. She looked better than she had the day before, more rested, more centered. "Ryan came by to get his things today," she said after we'd ordered. "How did that go?" "Surprisingly well, actually. He was sober and relatively civil. No more accusations about me overreacting or humiliating him." "Did he try to apologize?" "He did. A long speech about how sorry he was, and how much he regretted his mistakes, and how he wanted to prove he could change." "And what did you tell him?" "I told him I believed he was sorry, but that sorry wasn't enough anymore. That trust, once broken this badly, couldn't be repaired with apologies and promises." "How did he take that?" "Better than I expected. I think he knew it was over the moment I found out about Lisa. There's no explaining away that level of deception and disrespect. We talked about the practical aspects of divorce, dividing property, handling shared debts, dealing with the emotional fallout. Monica was approaching it all with the same methodical intelligence she brought to her nursing work. "I keep thinking about what my life will look like after this is all over," she said. "For 3 years, I've been half of a couple. Now I have to figure out who I am as a single person again." "Are you scared?" "Terrified," she admitted, "but also excited. For the first time in years, I get to make decisions based only on what I want, not what's best for a relationship that was built on lies." I feel the same way. I've been so focused on trying to fix whatever was wrong with Lisa and me that I forgot what it felt like to just be myself. Who are you when you're just yourself? It was a good question, one I hadn't considered in years. I used to know. Before Lisa, before the business problems, before I started measuring my worth by how well I could solve other people's problems, maybe this is your chance to find out again. As we walked back to our cars after dinner, Monica stopped and turned to face me. "Jake, I want to say something, and I hope it doesn't sound presumptuous." "Go ahead." "These conversations we've been having, they've been the best part of my days. You're smart and kind and funny, and talking to you reminds me that there are still good people in the world. I feel the same way about you. But I also think we need to be careful. We're both in a really vulnerable place right now, both dealing with betrayal and anger and a lot of complicated emotions. It would be easy to confuse gratitude and shared experience with something else." It was almost exactly what Sarah Chen had warned me about. "Are you worried we're going to complicate things?" "I'm worried we're going to make decisions based on what we're running from rather than what we're running toward." "So, what are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting we be honest about what this is right now. A friendship between two people who understand what each other is going through. And that we be patient about what it might become later, after we've both had time to heal." I respected her honesty and her caution. "I think that's very wise. I also think we should keep supporting each other through this divorce process. I need someone who understands what I'm dealing with, and I think you do too. Absolutely. Friends helping friends through a difficult time. Friends helping friends, she agreed. As I drove home that night, I reflected on how much my life had changed in just 3 days. My marriage was over, my business was struggling, and my entire future was uncertain. But for the first time in months, I felt hopeful about what came next. Lisa had done me a favor, though she'd never see it that way. By bringing Ryan to our anniversary dinner, she'd forced me to see our relationship clearly. She'd shown me what kind of person she really was, underneath the charm and manipulation. And in doing so, she'd freed me from a marriage that had been slowly killing my spirit. Tomorrow would bring more lawyers, more paperwork, more difficult conversations. But tonight, I was grateful for the clarity that came from finally knowing the truth, no matter how painful it had been to discover. 2 weeks after filing for divorce, my world shifted in ways I never expected. The morning started normally enough, reviewing blueprints at the office, coordinating with subcontractors, trying to salvage what remained of our client relationships. Then my father burst through the door with an expression I'd never seen before, somewhere between shock and elation. "Jake, you need to sit down for this," he said, waving a thick manila envelope in his hand. "What's going on, Dad? Remember the Morrison project? The downtown development we bid on 6 months ago and never heard back about?" Of course I remembered. The Morrison Group was developing a luxury mixed-use complex in downtown Portland, the kind of project that could single-handedly save our company. We'd submitted what I thought was a competitive bid, but months of silence had convinced us we hadn't gotten the contract. "They just called," Dad continued, his voice barely containing his excitement. "We got it. All of it. The full development contract." I stared at him, certain I'd misheard. "The full contract? That's impossible. That project is worth $12 million. $12.7 million to be exact. And Jake, that's not even the best part." He handed me the envelope, and I pulled out a letter bearing the Morrison Group letterhead. As I read, my hands began to shake. "They want to offer me a permanent position as project manager for all their West Coast developments," I said slowly, reading the words aloud to make sure they were real. "With a starting salary of $250,000 annually, plus profit sharing." Dad nodded, grinning like he'd won the lottery. "Turns out the Morrison Group has been quietly investigating our work quality for months. They interviewed past clients, reviewed our safety records, even had their people observe our job sites without us knowing. They were impressed enough to offer you a position that would essentially make you their lead contractor for everything, from Seattle to San Diego." I read through the contract details again, struggling to process the magnitude of what was being offered. Not only would this save Thompson Construction, but it would catapult us into a completely different league of success. "There's more," Dad said, pulling out another document. "They want to buy Thompson Construction outright as a subsidiary. They'd keep all our current employees, maintain our company name and reputation, but provide the financial backing and resources of a major development corporation. The buyout offer was more money than our family had ever dreamed of seeing. Enough to pay off all our debts, secure my parents' retirement, and give me financial independence I'd never imagined possible." When did all this happen? Why now? That's the interesting part. Apparently, their initial background check on us flagged some concerns about our financial stability. They were considering going with a different contractor. But then something changed their minds. What changed their minds? Dad's expression grew curious. "They mentioned being particularly impressed by our family's integrity and personal character. Said they'd received some compelling information about how we handle adversity and maintain our principles under pressure." A strange feeling settled in my stomach. "What kind of information?" "They wouldn't say exactly, but their timing is interesting, don't you think? This offer came through just days after your divorce filing became public record." Before I could respond, my phone rang. Monica's name appeared on the screen. "Excuse me, Dad. I need to take this." "Jake." Monica's voice was breathless with excitement. "You're not going to believe what just happened. Try me. I'm having a pretty unbelievable morning myself. I just got promoted to head of pediatric nursing at Portland Children's Hospital. The position comes with a 40% salary increase and my own department budget." "Monica, that's incredible. But wasn't that position held by someone with 20 years of experience? That's what I thought too. But Dr. Richardson called me into her office this morning and said the hospital administration had been watching my work and was impressed by my leadership qualities and professional integrity. She specifically mentioned that they'd received some very positive references about my character. The same strange feeling I'd experienced with Dad intensified. Positive references from whom? She wouldn't say. But Jake, the timing is so strange. This promotion was offered to me 3 days after I filed for divorce from Ryan. Monica, I think we need to talk, in person, as soon as possible. We agreed to meet at the same coffee shop where we'd had our first real conversation. I spent the drive trying to piece together what was happening. 2 major career breakthroughs, both involving character references and integrity assessments, both happening immediately after our respective divorce filings. It couldn't be coincidental. Monica was already at our usual table when I arrived, her cheeks flushed with excitement and confusion. "Okay," she said before I'd even sat down. "Something very strange is going on. I've been thinking about this promotion all morning, and nothing about it makes sense. Tell me everything that happened." Dr. Richardson said the hospital had been considering restructuring the pediatric department for months, but they needed someone they could trust with significant responsibility. She said they'd received information that convinced them I was the right person for the job. "What kind of information?" That's what I asked. She said they'd been contacted by someone who vouched for my integrity and professional character. Someone who'd witnessed me handling a difficult personal situation with grace and dignity. I felt the pieces clicking together. Did she say when this contact was made? Tuesday morning, 2 days after our dinner at the Rose Garden. We stared at each other across the table, both arriving at the same impossible conclusion. "Someone who witnessed us handling a difficult situation with grace and dignity," I said slowly. "Someone who contacted both the Morrison Group and Portland Children's Hospital to recommend us professionally. But who would do that? And how? Would they even know about our career situations?" Before I could answer, a familiar voice spoke from behind me. I hope you don't mind the interruption, but I couldn't help overhearing my name. We turned to see Steve, the manager from the Rose Garden, approaching our table with a slightly embarrassed smile. "Steve?" I stood up, confused. "What are you doing here?" "Having coffee, same as you. But I'm glad I ran into you both. I've been wanting to talk to you about what happened that night." Monica gestured to an empty chair. "Please, sit. We were just trying to figure out some very strange coincidences." Steve sat down, his expression growing serious. "They're not coincidences. I owe you both an explanation." "An explanation for what?" Monica asked. "For making some phone calls on your behalf." The coffee shop suddenly felt very quiet. Steve continued, his voice careful and measured. "What I witnessed that night at my restaurant was one of the most disgraceful displays of human behavior I've seen in 20 years of hospitality management. The way your spouses treated you both was unconscionable." "So you decided to call our employers?" I asked, still struggling to understand. "Not exactly. See, I've been in the restaurant business a long time, and I've learned that character reveals itself most clearly under pressure. What I saw that night was 2 people handling betrayal and humiliation with dignity, grace, and genuine care for each other." Steve paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. "I'm not just a restaurant manager, Jake. I sit on the board of directors for the Portland Business Association. We regularly consult with major development companies about contractor reliability and character assessments." The revelation hit me like a physical blow. "You recommended us to the Morrison Group." "I recommended you personally. I told them I'd witnessed you handle a devastating personal crisis with integrity and composure that spoke volumes about your character. I told them you were the kind of man who would maintain his principles even when it cost him personally." Monica leaned forward. "And the hospital?" "My wife, Patricia, is on the hospital's administrative board. She and I have been married 32 years, and I've learned to recognize genuine integrity when I see it. What you displayed that night, Monica. Standing up for yourself, setting boundaries, refusing to accept unacceptable behavior. Those are exactly the leadership qualities Patricia's department needs." I felt overwhelmed by the magnitude of what Steve was telling us. You changed our entire lives based on one evening? I enhanced opportunities that were already available. To you, Jake. The Morrison Group had been considering Thompson Construction for months. They just needed assurance about your personal character. Monica, the hospital had been planning that promotion for weeks. They just needed to identify the right candidate. But why? Monica asked. Why did you go so far out of your way to help two strangers? Steve's expression softened. Because 25 years ago, Patricia and I went through something similar. I was working as a junior manager at a different restaurant, and Patricia was a nursing student. We'd been dating for 2 years when she discovered I was seeing someone else. You cheated on her? I did. And when she confronted me about it, I handled it badly, made excuses, blamed her for not being understanding enough, tried to make her feel guilty for being upset. Steve paused, the memory clearly still painful. Patricia left me, moved to Seattle, finished nursing school there, started building a life without me. I spent 6 months feeling sorry for myself before I realized I'd lost the best person I'd ever known because of my own selfishness and cowardice. What did you do? I drove to Seattle, found her at the hospital where she was doing her residency, and asked for 5 minutes to apologize. Not to win her back, not to make excuses, just to apologize properly for the pain I'd caused. And she forgave you? Eventually. But first, she made me prove I'd actually changed. I spent a year going to counseling, learning about accountability and respect and what it really means to love someone. Patricia didn't take me back until she was convinced I understood the magnitude of what I'd done wrong. Monica and I exchanged glances. The parallel to our own situation was obvious, but inverted. We were the ones who'd been betrayed, not the betrayers. The night I watched you two walk out of my restaurant together, Steve continued, I saw what real integrity looked like under pressure. I saw two people who'd been treated terribly choosing to support each other instead of wallowing in bitterness. I saw the kind of character that deserves good things. So you decided to make some phone calls, I said. I decided to share what I'd witnessed with people who were in positions to recognize and reward that character. The rest was up to your own qualifications and merit. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, processing the incredible turn our lives had taken. There's something else, Steve said. Something you should know about your former spouses. My stomach tightened. What about them? Ryan was fired from Elite Fitness Gym yesterday. Apparently, several clients came forward with complaints about inappropriate behavior. The gym's management decided he was a liability they couldn't afford. Monica's eyes widened. Several clients? According to my sources, your situation at the restaurant opened the floodgates. Other women started speaking up about unwanted advances, inappropriate comments, and unprofessional conduct. The gym had no choice but to terminate him. And Lisa? I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. Her situation is more complicated. She's been calling the Rose Garden repeatedly, trying to book the same private dining room where your anniversary dinner took place. She claims she wants to host a reconciliation dinner for you. A reconciliation dinner? Apparently, she's convinced herself that if she can recreate the scene of your anniversary, but this time without Ryan, she can somehow undo what happened that night. The delusion was staggering. Lisa actually believed she could erase the memory of bringing her lover to our anniversary dinner by hosting another dinner in the same location. I told her we were booked solid for the next 6 months, Steve continued. Which is true, but I would have said it even if we weren't. Thank you, I said, meaning it more than I could express. Don't thank me yet. There's more. Monica and I braced ourselves for whatever revelation was coming next. Lisa has been showing up at Ryan's apartment complex, trying to convince him to continue their relationship. According to building security, she's been there every day since your confrontation at the restaurant. Even though she knows he's married and that he lied to her about everything. Even though Ryan has been refusing to see her, which seems to be making her more desperate rather than less. The image of Lisa stalking Ryan, trying to salvage a relationship with a serial cheater who'd already moved on to his next target, would have been pathetic if it weren't so concerning. Is she a danger to herself or others? Monica asked, her nursing training kicking in. I don't think so. But her behavior is becoming increasingly erratic. Yesterday she showed up at Elite Fitness Gym demanding to speak with Ryan, not knowing he'd been fired. When they told her he no longer worked there, she accused them of lying and refused to leave until security escorted her out. The Lisa that Steve was describing bore little resemblance to the woman I'd married. The confident, successful marketing professional had been replaced by someone obsessed with a man who'd used her and discarded her. "Jake," Monica said gently, "I think you need to be careful. If Lisa is as unstable as Steve is describing, she might escalate her behavior toward you." "What do you mean?" "I mean she might blame you for Ryan's rejection. In her mind, if you hadn't walked out on her that night, if you'd been willing to fight for your marriage, maybe Ryan would have chosen her over me." The logic was twisted, but not impossible. Lisa had already demonstrated a remarkable ability to avoid responsibility for her own choices. Blaming me for the failure of her affair would be consistent with her pattern of behavior. "Have you had any contact with her since that night she came to your parents' house?" Steve asked. "Text messages and voicemails, but I haven't responded to any of them. My lawyer advised me not to communicate directly during the divorce proceedings." "Good advice. But you might want to consider a restraining order if her behavior continues to escalate." The thought of needing legal protection for my own wife was surreal, but Steve's concern seemed genuine. "What about Ryan?" I asked Monica. "Has he tried to contact you?" "A few times, but nothing threatening. Mostly just pathetic attempts to apologize and win me back. I think he's realized that Lisa isn't going to be his soft landing after our divorce." "So he's lost his job, his wife, and his mistress all in the span of 2 weeks?" "Apparently so, and according to Steve, he's not handling it well." Steve nodded grimly. "Ryan was seen at Murphy's Tavern 3 nights ago, drunk and telling anyone who would listen about how his life had been ruined by vindictive women who couldn't handle a little competition." "Competition?" Monica's voice was sharp with anger. His words, not mine. "Apparently, in Ryan's version of events, you and Jake conspired to destroy his happiness because you couldn't accept that he and Lisa had found true love." The revision of history was breathtaking in its audacity. Ryan had transformed himself from a cheating husband and serial manipulator into a victim of jealous spouses who couldn't appreciate the purity of his connection with Lisa. "So we're the villains in his story," I said. "According to him, yes. You're the controlling husband who drove Lisa into his arms, and Monica is the jealous wife who couldn't accept that he'd found someone better." Monica laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Someone better? He was cheating on me with at least 5 other women during our marriage." Logic isn't Ryan's strong suit right now. Alcohol and wounded pride have a way of distorting perspective. As we prepared to leave the coffee shop, Steve handed us his business card. "If either of you need anything, professional references, personal recommendations, or just someone to vouch for your character, don't hesitate to call." What I witnessed that night convinced me that there are still good people in this world, and good people deserve good things. Walking back to our cars, Monica and I were both quiet, processing the incredible turn our lives had taken. "Can you believe this?" she finally said. 2 weeks ago, we were both married to people who were betraying us. Today, we both have career opportunities we never dreamed of. It feels too good to be true. Maybe. Or maybe this is what happens when you finally stop accepting unacceptable behavior and start demanding the respect you deserve. Steve certainly seems to think our character under pressure was worth rewarding. Maybe that's the real lesson here, Jake. Maybe the universe was just waiting for us to stop settling for less than we deserved. As I drove back to the office to share the Morrison Group news with my father, I reflected on how dramatically my life had changed. The marriage I'd thought was worth saving had revealed itself to be built on deception and disrespect. The business I'd feared losing was about to become more successful than ever. The future I'd dreaded was beginning to look brighter than anything I'd previously imagined. But the most unexpected change was my growing friendship with Monica. What had started as shared trauma was evolving into genuine mutual respect and affection. She was intelligent, principled, and possessed the kind of quiet strength that only came from facing real adversity with grace. Sarah Chen's warning about rebound relationships echoed in my mind. But this didn't feel like a rebound. It felt like discovering what a healthy relationship was supposed to look like after years of accepting dysfunction as normal. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Jake, this is Lisa. I know you're not answering my calls, but please just give me one chance to explain everything. I made a terrible mistake, and I know how to fix it. Meet me at the Rose Garden tonight at 7. I've booked our table. I showed the message to Monica when we met for dinner that evening at a completely different restaurant. She actually booked the table? Monica asked, reading over the text. Apparently so, despite Steve telling her they were booked solid. So she lied to get the reservation? Or found another way to manipulate the situation? Lisa has always been very good at getting what she wants. Are you going to meet her? Absolutely not. But I am going to forward this to my lawyer as evidence of continued harassment. Monica nodded approvingly. Good. You don't owe her anything, Jake. Not an explanation, not closure, not another chance to manipulate you. I know that intellectually. But part of me still feels guilty about not trying harder to save our marriage. Jake, you didn't bring another man to your anniversary dinner. You didn't hold hands with someone else while defending your relationship with them. You didn't destroy your marriage. Lisa did. I know you're right. It's just hard to let go of 8 years of thinking I was responsible for making Lisa happy. You were responsible for being a good husband. She was responsible for being a good wife. She failed at her responsibility, not you at yours. As we talked over dinner, I found myself studying Monica's face. The way her eyes lit up when she laughed. The graceful way she gestured when making a point. She was beautiful. But more than that, she was the kind of person who made everyone around her feel valued and understood. Can I ask you something? I said as we were finishing our meal. Of course. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we'd met under different circumstances? If we'd both been single when we first encountered each other? Monica considered the question carefully. I think about it sometimes, but I also think we might not have appreciated each other as much if we hadn't been through what we've been through. What do you mean? I mean, we both know what it's like to be with someone who doesn't value us. We both understand the difference between real love and manipulation, between genuine partnership and selfish exploitation. That perspective might make us better partners for each other when the time is right. When the time is right? Jake, we're both still technically married to other people. We're both dealing with divorce proceedings and emotional trauma and major life changes. I care about you deeply, but I want us to be together for the right reasons, not just because we're both running from bad marriages. Her wisdom was one of the things I admired most about her. Monica never made decisions based on emotion alone. She thought things through, considered consequences, made choices that served her long-term well-being rather than just her immediate desires. So, what are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we continue being friends and supporting each other through our divorces. And when we're both legally single and emotionally ready, we see what develops naturally. And if what develops is something romantic? Monica smiled, the first truly unguarded smile I'd seen from her. Then we'll be two people who chose each other freely, not two people who found each other by accident in the wreckage of our failed marriages. As I walked Monica to her car that night, I realized I was falling in love with her patience as much as her beauty, with her wisdom as much as her warmth. She was everything Lisa wasn't: honest, principled, genuinely caring about others' well-being. But she was also right about timing. We both needed to finish the process of disentangling ourselves from our past mistakes before we could fully commit to building something new together. My phone rang as I was driving home. Lisa's number appeared on the screen, but I let it go to voicemail. When I checked the message later, her voice was slurred and desperate. Jake, I'm at the Rose Garden waiting for you. I know you got my message. I have so much to tell you, so much to explain. I figured everything out, baby. I know how to fix us. Please come. Please don't leave me here alone. The combination of alcohol and desperation in her voice was concerning, but not enough to make me reconsider meeting her. Lisa had made her choices, and now she had to live with the consequences. Instead, I called Steve to let him know Lisa was likely intoxicated at his restaurant and might need assistance getting home safely. He assured me his staff would handle the situation appropriately. That night, as I lay in my childhood bedroom at my parents' house, I thought about how much my life had changed in just 2 weeks. I'd lost a wife who didn't respect me and gained career opportunities beyond my wildest dreams. I'd discovered that my integrity had value to people who mattered, and I'd found friendship with someone who understood what real partnership looked like. Most importantly, I'd learned that sometimes what feels like the worst thing that could happen to you is actually the best thing that could happen to you. Lisa's betrayal had hurt deeply, but it had also freed me from a relationship that was slowly destroying my self-respect and sense of worth. Tomorrow would bring new challenges: divorce proceedings, business transitions, continued healing from betrayal. But for the first time in months, I was genuinely excited about what the future might hold. The courthouse steps felt colder than usual as I waited for Sarah Chen to arrive. 6 weeks had passed since that disastrous anniversary dinner, and today was the final hearing for my divorce from Lisa. The Oregon morning was crisp and clear, the kind of weather that made everything seem possible. Monica stood beside me, wearing a navy blue dress that made her look both professional and beautiful. She'd insisted on coming for moral support, even though her own divorce wouldn't be finalized for another week. Her presence had become a source of strength I'd grown to depend on, though we'd been careful to maintain appropriate boundaries throughout our respective legal proceedings. "Nervous?" she asked, adjusting her purse strap. Surprisingly, no, more like relieved that it's almost over. "Any word from Lisa this morning?" I checked my phone automatically, though I'd been blocking her calls for weeks. Nothing today. Her lawyer probably told her to maintain silence until after the hearing. Sarah Chen appeared at the courthouse entrance, her briefcase in one hand and a confident expression on her face. She'd been worth every penny of her substantial fee, handling Lisa's increasingly desperate legal maneuvers with professional efficiency. "Good morning, Jake. Ready to become a free man?" "More than ready." "Excellent. Lisa's attorney called my office an hour ago requesting a final settlement conference. Apparently, she's prepared to accept our terms without modification." This was unexpected. For weeks, Lisa's lawyer had been fighting every detail of the divorce agreement, demanding spousal support, half the business assets, and even attempting to claim she deserved compensation for emotional damages caused by my abandonment of the marriage. What changed her mind? Sarah's expression grew grim. "I suspect it has something to do with the information we received yesterday about her recent behavior." She handed me a manila folder containing police reports, witness statements, and photographs that made my stomach turn. Lisa had been arrested 3 times in the past month, once for trespassing at Ryan's apartment complex, once for creating a disturbance at Elite Fitness Gym, and once for what the report described as erratic behavior in the parking lot of the Rose Garden. "She's been stalking him," Monica said quietly, reading over my shoulder. "It gets worse," Sarah continued. "Ryan filed a restraining order against her last week. Apparently, she'd been leaving gifts at his door, following him to job interviews, and showing up at places she thought he might be." The photographs showed Lisa looking haggard and wild-eyed, nothing like the polished professional I'd married. Her hair was unkempt, her clothing wrinkled, and her expression held a desperate intensity that was genuinely frightening. "The restraining order was the final straw," Sarah explained. "Her lawyer realized that fighting our divorce terms while she's facing multiple harassment charges would be a public relations nightmare. Better to accept a clean settlement than risk having her behavior scrutinized in open court." As we entered the courthouse, I felt a complex mix of emotions. Relief that the divorce would be finalized quickly. Sadness for the woman Lisa had become, and gratitude that I'd escaped what could have been a much more destructive situation. The hearing itself was anticlimactic. Lisa sat at the plaintiff's table looking subdued and defeated, flanked by her attorney and what appeared to be a family member I didn't recognize. She avoided eye contact throughout the proceedings, staring at her hands while the judge reviewed our settlement agreement. When Judge Martinez asked if both parties agreed to the terms, Lisa's yes was barely audible. The judge declared our marriage officially dissolved, effective immediately. 8 years of shared history reduced to a stamp on legal documents. Walking out of the courthouse as a divorced man felt surreal. The sun seemed brighter, the air cleaner, as if a weight I hadn't realized I was carrying had suddenly been lifted. "How do you feel?" Monica asked as we descended the courthouse steps. "Free," I said, and meant it completely. Sarah shook my hand and congratulated me on handling a difficult situation with dignity. As she walked away, Monica and I found ourselves alone on the courthouse steps, both processing the magnitude of what had just happened. "Your turn next week," I said. "I'm not worried about it. Ryan's lawyer already indicated he'll accept our terms. I think losing his job and facing Lisa's harassment has made him eager to disappear quietly." We walked to a nearby cafe to celebrate the end of my marriage, an irony that wasn't lost on either of us. Over coffee and pastries, we talked about practical matters. When I'd move out of my parents' house, how to handle the transition at Thompson Construction, what Monica's new role at the hospital would entail. But underneath the practical conversation was an electric undercurrent of possibility. For the first time since we'd met, we were both free to explore what might develop between us without the complication of existing marriages. "Jake," Monica said carefully, "I want to talk about something important." "I'm listening." "Now that your divorce is finalized, and mine will be next week, I think we need to address the elephant in the room." "Which elephant would that be?" "The fact that we've both been very carefully not talking about our feelings for each other." My heart rate increased. "And what feelings would those be?" Monica smiled, her cheeks flushing slightly. "The feelings that make me look forward to your phone calls more than anything else in my day. The feelings that make me want to share every piece of good news with you first. The feelings that make me think about what it would be like to kiss you when you're being particularly charming." The honesty was both thrilling and terrifying. "I've been thinking about that too." "Good. Because I've also been thinking about what I said before, about waiting until we were both emotionally ready, and I think I am ready, Jake. I think we both are." "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting we stop pretending we're just friends and see what happens when we're honest about wanting more." The conversation was interrupted by my phone ringing. An unknown number appeared on the screen. "I should probably take this," I said apologetically. "Jake Thompson?" The voice was unfamiliar, professional. "Speaking. This is Detective Rebecca Morris with Portland Police. I'm calling about Lisa Thompson. I understand she's your ex-wife?" My blood ran cold. "Yes, we just finalized our divorce this morning. What's happened?" "Ms. Thompson was involved in an incident last night. She's currently in custody, and she's been asking to speak with you." "What kind of incident?" "She was arrested for breaking into Ryan Martinez's apartment. When officers arrived, they found her destroying property and claiming she was cleaning house for when Ryan comes home." Monica's eyes widened as she overheard the conversation. "Is she hurt?" I asked, though I wasn't sure why I cared. "Physically, she's fine. Mentally, she's being evaluated by our crisis intervention team. She seems to be experiencing some kind of psychological break." "Detective, I have a restraining order filed by Ryan Martinez, and I'm not comfortable having contact with Lisa. I understand your position, Mr. Thompson, but she's been asking for you specifically, and our mental health professionals think speaking with you might help stabilize her enough for proper evaluation." I looked at Monica, who nodded encouragingly. "I'll come down to the station," I said, "but I want to bring someone with me." "That's fine. Ask for me when you arrive." The Portland police station was busier than I'd expected for a Thursday afternoon. Detective Morris met us in the lobby, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and the patient demeanor of someone accustomed to dealing with human tragedy. "Thank you for coming, Mr. Thompson. I should warn you that Ms. Thompson appears to be in a state of severe psychological distress. She's been alternating between demanding to see Ryan Martinez and insisting that you're the only person who can help her. What exactly happened last night?" "According to building security, she used a spare key she apparently had made to enter Mr. Martinez's apartment. When he wasn't there, she began what she described as preparing the space for his return. This involved throwing away all his belongings, redecorating with items she'd purchased, and setting up what appeared to be a romantic dinner for two." Monica shook her head in disbelief. "She was playing house in his apartment?" "It appears so. When officers arrived, she was wearing a wedding dress and insisted that she and Mr. Martinez were getting married the next day. The image of Lisa in a wedding dress, alone in Ryan's apartment, preparing for a wedding that existed only in her mind, was deeply disturbing." "Detective, I'm not a mental health professional, but this sounds like a complete break from reality. Our crisis team agrees. She's been placed on a 72-hour psychiatric hold for evaluation. But she's been asking for you constantly, and sometimes talking to familiar people can help ground someone who's experiencing this kind of episode. Detective Morris led us to a small conference room with reinforced glass windows. Lisa sat at a metal table, still wearing the wedding dress from the night before, though it was now wrinkled and stained. Her hair was tangled, her makeup smeared, and her eyes held a vacant quality that was genuinely frightening. "Jake!" she exclaimed when she saw me, standing up so quickly that her chair fell backward. "You came. I knew you'd come. Tell them, Jake. Tell them about our anniversary dinner, about how we're working things out." I sat down across from her, with Monica beside me and Detective Morris near the door. "Lisa, our anniversary dinner was 6 weeks ago. We got divorced this morning." "No, no, no." She shook her head violently. "That's not right. The divorce isn't real. I never signed anything. Ryan and I are getting married tomorrow, and then you and I can work on fixing our problems. Lisa, you did sign the papers, and Ryan has a restraining order against you. He doesn't mean it. He's just confused because his wife has been poisoning him against me." She looked at Monica with undisguised hatred. "You did this. You turned him against me because you're jealous." Monica remained calm despite Lisa's accusation. "Lisa, Ryan and I are divorced. He made his own choices about your relationship." "Liar!" Lisa screamed, lunging toward Monica before Detective Morris intervened. "Lisa, calm down," I said firmly. "Monica didn't do anything to you. You need to accept reality here." "Reality?" Lisa laughed, a sound devoid of any humor. "Reality is that Ryan loves me. Reality is that we're supposed to be together. Reality is that everyone is conspiring to keep us apart." It was clear that Lisa was experiencing a complete disconnect from actual events. In her mind, she and Ryan were still in a relationship despite his restraining order, despite his rejection, despite all evidence to the contrary. "Lisa, listen to me carefully," I said, trying to use the gentle but firm tone I'd heard Monica use with agitated patience. "Ryan isn't coming back. He doesn't want to be with you. You need to accept that, and focus on getting the help you need." "You're lying," she whispered, but some of the fight went out of her voice. "You're all lying to me." "Why would we lie to you?" "Because you want me to be alone. Because you can't stand to see me happy." The delusion was so complete, so removed from reality, that I felt genuinely sorry for her despite everything she'd put me through. "Lisa, I don't want you to be alone or unhappy. I want you to get better. But you need professional help." "I don't need help. I need Ryan. I need him to remember how much he loves me." Detective Morris stepped forward. "Ms. Thompson, you're going to be staying with us for a few more days while the doctors make sure you're okay." "I can't stay here. Ryan will be looking for me. He'll be worried if I don't come home." "Ryan isn't looking for you, Lisa," I said gently. "He's moved on with his life, and you need to do the same." The words seemed to pierce through her delusions for just a moment. Her face crumpled, and she began crying with the heartbroken sobs of someone finally confronting reality. "He really doesn't want me?" she asked in a small voice. "No, Lisa, he doesn't. And you don't want me either? Our marriage is over. It's been over for a long time." She nodded slowly, tears streaming down her face. For the first time, since we'd entered the room, she seemed to be seeing the situation clearly. "I ruined everything, didn't I? You made some very poor choices. But that doesn't mean your life is over. You can get help and build something better. I'm so sorry, Jake. I'm so sorry for what I did to you." It was the first genuine apology I'd heard from her since the anniversary dinner. "I forgive you, Lisa, but you need to forgive yourself and focus on getting healthy." The rest of the conversation was brief. Lisa seemed exhausted by the effort of confronting reality, and Detective Morris indicated it was time for us to leave. As we walked toward the door, Lisa called out one last time, "Jake, are you happy now?" I turned back to look at her, this broken woman who'd once been my wife, sitting alone in her stained wedding dress. "I'm getting there," I said honestly. "Good. I'm glad. You deserve to be happy." Outside the police station, Monica and I stood in the afternoon sunshine, both processing what we'd just witnessed. "That was heartbreaking," Monica said. "I know she hurt us both, but seeing her like that, it's hard not to feel sorry for her. She's clearly having a psychological crisis. The Lisa who brought Ryan to your anniversary dinner was manipulative and cruel. But that woman in there is genuinely ill." We drove back to Monica's house in contemplative silence. The small bungalow in Selwood had become a refuge for both of us over the past weeks, a place where we could talk honestly about our experiences and plan for our futures. "I have something to tell you," Monica said as we settled on her couch with cups of tea. "What's that?" "I've been thinking about what happened today, about Lisa and Ryan and all the chaos they've brought into our lives. And I realized that I'm grateful for it." I set down my teacup, surprised. "Grateful?" "Not grateful for the pain or the betrayal, but grateful that their behavior forced us to make difficult decisions about what we were willing to accept in our lives." "I think I understand what you mean. If Ryan had been more subtle about his cheating, if Lisa had been more careful about hiding her affair, we might have spent years in marriages that were slowly destroying our self-respect and happiness. Instead of just months." "Exactly. Their complete lack of discretion or respect actually did us a favor by making the situation impossible to ignore or rationalize away." Monica was right. If Lisa had been more careful, more manipulative, I might have spent years wondering what was wrong with me, why I couldn't make my wife happy, why our marriage felt so hollow. "And now here we are," she continued, "both free to choose what we want for our futures instead of just accepting what we thought we deserved." "And what do you want for your future?" Monica set down her tea and moved closer to me on the couch. "I want to build something real with someone who values honesty and respect as much as I do." "Anyone particular in mind?" "I might have someone in mind." The kiss, when it finally happened, was everything I'd imagined and more. Gentle but passionate, patient but urgent, filled with months of suppressed attraction and genuine affection. When we broke apart, Monica was smiling. "That was nice," she said softly. "Just nice?" "Okay, it was significantly better than nice. We spent the evening talking about practical matters, when we might move in together, how to blend our careers and social lives, what we wanted from a real partnership." The conversation felt different from any I'd had with Lisa, more collaborative and less defensive. "I want you to know," Monica said as the evening wound down, "that I'm not looking for you to rescue me or fix my problems. I'm looking for a partner, someone to build a life with as equals. That's exactly what I want too. I'm tired of relationships where one person does all the giving and the other does all the taking." "Good. Because I plan to be very demanding, about mutual respect and honest communication. I wouldn't want it any other way." As I drove home that night, I reflected on the incredible journey that had brought me to this point. 6 weeks ago, I'd been trapped in a marriage built on lies and manipulation. Tonight, I was beginning a relationship built on honesty and mutual respect. My phone buzzed with a text from Monica. "Thank you for today, for supporting me through Lisa's crisis, for being patient with my caution, and for being exactly the kind of man worth waiting for." I texted back, "Thank you for showing me what real partnership looks like." The future felt full of possibility in a way it hadn't for years. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, helping Lisa get the mental health treatment she needed, navigating the early stages of a relationship with Monica, managing the success of Thompson Construction's partnership with the Morrison Group. But tonight, for the first time in longer than I could remember, I felt genuinely optimistic about what lay ahead. I'd learned that sometimes the worst thing that can happen to you, having your marriage publicly destroyed by your wife's betrayal, can also be the best thing that can happen to you, if it forces you to stop accepting less than you deserve. The anniversary dinner that had seemed like the end of my world had actually been the beginning of a much better one. And as I fell asleep in my own apartment for the first time in weeks, I was grateful for every painful step that had led me to this moment of hope and possibility. 2 years later, I stood in the same private dining room at the Rose Garden where my marriage had publicly imploded. But this time the atmosphere couldn't have been more different. Soft jazz played in the background, while Portland's autumn rain created a gentle rhythm against the windows. the space that had once witnessed my humiliation, was now hosting one of the happiest moments of my life. Monica emerged from the restaurant's bridal suite wearing an elegant cream-colored dress that complemented her radiant smile. Unlike the elaborate affair Lisa had always insisted she wanted, Monica had chosen something simple and meaningful. A small ceremony with just our closest friends and family, followed by dinner at the place where we'd first discovered we could trust each other with our deepest truths. Steve beamed as he escorted Monica down the short aisle we'd created between the tables. His role as unofficial officiant felt perfect, given how instrumental he'd been in bringing us together. Patricia sat in the front row, tears streaming down her face as she watched her husband perform a ceremony that celebrated the kind of love they'd fought to rebuild in their own marriage. "Dearly beloved," Steve began, his voice carrying the weight of someone who understood the value of second chances. "We gather today to witness the union of two people who have learned that real love isn't about finding someone perfect, but about finding someone whose imperfections complement your own." My parents sat at the family table, my father looking prouder than I'd seen him since Thompson Construction's partnership with the Morrison Group had been announced. My mother clutched a tissue, emotional about seeing her son marry someone who genuinely cherished him. They'd grown to love Monica over the past 2 years, appreciating her intelligence, her warmth, and the way she encouraged me to be my best self without demanding I be someone else entirely. Monica's parents had flown in from Sacramento, still somewhat bewildered by how their daughter had found love in the aftermath of divorce, but thrilled to see her genuinely happy. Her father, a retired firefighter with calloused hands and a gentle heart, had spent the morning telling anyone who would listen about how proud he was of Monica's strength and resilience. "Jake and Monica," Steve continued, "you've both experienced what happens when love is confused with possession, when partnership is mistaken for control. Today, you're choosing something different. A relationship built on mutual respect, honest communication, and the kind of trust that can only come from seeing each other handle life's worst moments with grace." The ceremony was brief but meaningful. We'd written our own vows, promising each other honesty, support, and the freedom to grow both individually and together. When Steve pronounced us husband and wife, the kiss we shared felt like both a culmination and a beginning. The end of our journey back from betrayal and the start of our adventure as equal partners. The reception that followed was intimate and joyful. Tom, my childhood friend who'd served as best man, gave a toast that had everyone laughing about my legendary inability to cook anything more complicated than scrambled eggs, while Monica's sister Sarah spoke movingly about watching Monica rediscover her confidence and happiness over the past 2 years. Dr. Richardson from Portland Children's Hospital was there with her husband, still marveling at how Monica had transformed the pediatric department since her promotion. Several colleagues from the Morrison Group attended, including project managers who'd become genuine friends as Thompson Construction had grown into one of their most trusted partners. But perhaps the most meaningful moment came when Detective Rebecca Morris arrived toward the end of the evening. She'd stayed in touch with both Monica and me, providing updates on Lisa's progress in treatment and Ryan's continued struggles with accountability. "I wanted to congratulate you both in person," she said, shaking our hands warmly. "It's rare to see people handle trauma the way you two did, with dignity, compassion, and genuine concern for everyone involved, even those who hurt you." "How is Lisa doing?" Monica asked, though we'd been getting periodic updates through her sister. "Much better, actually. The psychiatric treatment helped stabilize her, and she's been in intensive therapy for 18 months now. She's living in a supervised group home in Eugene, working part-time at a nonprofit, and by all accounts taking her recovery seriously." This was genuinely good news. The Lisa who'd stalked Ryan and broken into his apartment had been replaced by someone who was slowly learning to take responsibility for her actions and build a healthier relationship with reality. "Has she asked about Jake at all?" "Occasionally, but more in terms of making amends than rekindling anything. Her therapist says she's working through the guilt of how she treated you, Jake. She apparently wants to write you a letter of apology someday, when she's further along in her recovery. I considered this information carefully. If she does write, I'll read it. But I hope she understands that forgiveness doesn't mean wanting to resume any kind of relationship. She does understand that. From what I've been told, she's more focused on making peace with the past than trying to reclaim it." Detective Morris also updated us on Ryan's situation, which was far less encouraging. He'd never found steady employment after being fired from elite fitness gym, had been arrested twice more for harassment of different women, and was currently serving 6 months in county jail for violating the restraining order Lisa had eventually filed against him. Some people learn from their mistakes, Detective Morris observed. Others just keep repeating them with different victims. As the evening wound down and our guests began to leave, Monica and I found ourselves alone in the private dining room where our friendship had begun. The space looked different now, decorated with flowers instead of the stark elegance of that anniversary dinner, filled with the warmth of genuine celebration rather than the cold tension of betrayal. "Can you believe we're here?" Monica asked, settling into the chair next to mine. "Sometimes it feels like a dream. 2 years ago, if someone had told me I'd be marrying the waitress from my disastrous anniversary dinner, I'd have thought they were insane." "I wasn't just the waitress," Monica corrected with a smile. "I was the waitress whose husband was your wife's lover." "True. That does make the story more complicated." We sat in comfortable silence for a while, both reflecting on the incredible journey that had brought us to this moment. The rain had stopped, and Portland's lights twinkled through the windows like scattered diamonds. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if Ryan hadn't been married?" Monica asked. "If Lisa had just been having an affair with a single man?" "I think about it sometimes. Would I have fought harder for the marriage? Would I have tried to win her back? And what do you think?" "I think I would have tried, and I think I would have been miserable." "Lisa's problem wasn't that she fell in love with someone else. It was that she was incapable of treating another person with genuine respect and consideration. That wouldn't have changed whether Ryan was married or single." Monica nodded thoughtfully. "I feel the same way about Ryan. The fact that he was married to me while pursuing Lisa wasn't the real problem. The real problem was that he saw relationships as opportunities for conquest rather than partnership." "Do you think they deserved each other?" "I think they were both too selfish to deserve anyone, which is probably why their relationship imploded so spectacularly once the excitement of the affair wore off. We'd heard through various sources that Lisa and Ryan had tried to maintain their relationship after our respective divorces, but it had lasted less than 3 weeks. Without the thrill of deception and the forbidden nature of their connection, they'd discovered they had nothing substantial in common. Ryan had quickly moved on to pursuing other women, while Lisa had spiraled into the obsessive behavior that led to her breakdown. "I'm grateful it happened the way it did," Monica said, taking my hand across the table. "Not grateful for the pain, but grateful that we found each other through it. Even though it was messy and public and humiliating, especially because it was messy and public and humiliating. If they'd been more discreet about their affair, we might have spent years in toxic marriages, slowly losing ourselves to people who didn't value what we had to offer." I thought about this perspective often. Lisa's decision to bring Ryan to our anniversary dinner had been the height of disrespect, but it had also been the clearest possible demonstration of who she really was underneath the charm and manipulation. Similarly, Ryan's willingness to participate in that humiliation had revealed his true character more effectively than months of subtle signs might have done. "Steve," I called as our host passed by the dining room. "Come sit with us for a minute." Steve joined us at the table, looking tired but happy after hosting our wedding celebration. "I wanted to thank you again," I said, "not just for tonight, but for everything you did 2 years ago. Making those phone calls, vouching for our character. You changed our lives." "You changed your own lives," Steve replied. "I just provided some opportunities for your integrity to be recognized and rewarded." "But why did you go so far out of your way for 2 strangers?" Steve considered the question carefully. "Because 25 years ago, when Patricia and I were going through our crisis, a stranger helped us when they didn't have to. A marriage counselor who saw something worth saving in our relationship and worked with us long after her usual hours, just because she believed people deserved second chances." "So you were paying it forward?" "In a way, yes. But also because what I witnessed that night reminded me why Patricia and I fought so hard to rebuild our marriage. You two showed me what real partnership looks like. Supporting each other through crisis, maintaining your dignity under pressure, choosing cooperation over competition." Patricia joined us, having finished supervising the cleanup of our reception. "Steve told me what happened that night," she said to Monica and me. "About how you handled discovering your spouse's affair. I was so impressed by your grace under impossible circumstances. We didn't feel particularly graceful at the time, Monica admitted. That's what made it so genuine. You were both in shock and pain, but you still treated each other with kindness and respect. That says everything about your character. Steve and Patricia left us alone again, and Monica and I began gathering our personal items from the reception. As we prepared to leave the rose garden as husband and wife, I felt a profound sense of completion. Mrs. Thompson, I said, testing out Monica's new name. That's going to take some getting used to, she laughed. But I like the sound of it. Any regrets about keeping your maiden name professionally? None at all. Dr. Monica Martinez has worked hard to build her reputation at the hospital. Mrs. Monica Thompson gets to build a life with the man she loves. I'm lucky enough to be both. We drove to our new house in silence, both exhausted from the emotional intensity of the day, but deeply content. We'd bought the Craftsman bungalow in the Laurelhurst neighborhood 6 months earlier, drawn to its charm and the established garden that reminded Monica of her childhood home in California. The house represented everything our previous marriages hadn't. A space we'd chosen together, decorated with items that reflected both our tastes, filled with furniture that held no painful memories or hidden meanings. I have a confession, Monica said as we sat on our front porch, still in our wedding attire. What's that? I've been thinking about Lisa today, wondering if she's okay, if she's found any peace. That's very compassionate of you, considering everything she put us through. I know she hurt us both terribly. But that woman we saw at the police station 2 years ago, she was clearly suffering from more than just a broken heart. She was having a genuine psychological crisis. I'd thought about Lisa often over the past 2 years, particularly as my anger had faded and been replaced by something closer to pity. The manipulative, cruel woman who'd brought her lover to our anniversary dinner had been real. But so had the broken, delusional person who'd stalked Ryan and destroyed his apartment. Do you think she'll ever be truly okay? I hope so. For her sake, not ours. Everyone deserves the chance to learn from their mistakes and build something better. Even people who hurt us. Especially people who hurt us. Holding on to anger and resentment only hurts us in the end. This was one of the things I loved most about Monica. Her ability to extend compassion even to those who'd wronged her. Not because she was naive or weak, but because she understood that forgiveness was ultimately about freeing herself from the burden of bitterness. What about Ryan? Monica's expression hardened slightly. Ryan is a different case. Lisa was clearly having a mental health crisis. Ryan is just a selfish person who refuses to take responsibility for his actions. Until that changes, he'll keep hurting people. Detective Morris said he's in jail. Again. Good. Maybe this time he'll be forced to confront the consequences of his behavior. We went inside and began the process of changing out of our wedding clothes, but neither of us was ready for sleep. The day had been too significant, too emotionally charged to end abruptly. I keep thinking about something Steve said during the ceremony, Monica said, settling onto our couch in comfortable pajamas. About how we learned to distinguish between love and possession. What about it? I was thinking about how Lisa and Ryan both seem to view relationships as competitions to be won, rather than partnerships to be built. Lisa certainly saw our marriage that way. She was always keeping score. Who did more housework? Who made more money? Who sacrificed more for the relationship? Ryan was the same way. Everything was about what I could do for him. How I could support his goals and make his life easier. The idea of partnership, of mutual support and shared responsibility, was completely foreign to him. We talked late into the night about the differences between our previous marriages and what we hoped to build together. Both of us had learned hard lessons about the importance of choosing partners who shared our values, who were capable of genuine empathy and mutual respect. I want us to promise each other something, Monica said as we finally prepared for bed. What's that? If we're ever struggling, if we're having problems we can't solve on our own, we'll get help. We'll go to counseling. We'll talk to trusted friends. We'll do whatever it takes to address issues before they become insurmountable. I promise. What else? We'll never take each other for granted. We'll keep dating each other, surprising each other, choosing each other every day instead of just assuming the other person will always be there. I promise that too. As we lay in bed that first night as husband and wife, I reflected on the incredible transformation my life had. undergone. 2 years earlier, I'd been trapped in a marriage that was slowly eroding my self-respect and happiness. Tonight, I was beginning a partnership built on everything my previous marriage had lacked: honesty, mutual respect, genuine affection, and shared values. The anniversary dinner that had seemed like the end of my world had actually been the beginning of a much better one. Lisa's betrayal had been devastating at the time, but it had also freed me to discover what real love was supposed to feel like. "Jake?" Monica's voice was sleepy but content. "Yeah? Thank you for being patient with my caution about our relationship, for understanding why I needed to wait until we were both ready. Thank you for being worth the wait. Sweet dreams, husband. Sweet dreams, wife." 6 months later, we received an unexpected letter forwarded through Detective Morris. The return address showed Lisa's name and the group home where she was living. The letter was handwritten on simple stationery, the handwriting careful and controlled. "Dear Jake and Monica," it began. "I know I have no right to contact you, and I understand if you choose not to read this or respond. But my therapist believes that making amends is an important part of my recovery, and I wanted to try to express how deeply sorry I am for the pain I caused you both." The letter went on for 3 pages, detailing Lisa's understanding of how her behavior had affected us, her acceptance of responsibility for her choices, and her commitment to continued treatment and personal growth. She asked for nothing. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation, not even a response. She simply wanted to acknowledge the harm she'd caused and express genuine remorse. "She sounds different," Monica observed after reading the letter. "Healthier, more self-aware." "Do you want to respond?" I considered the question carefully. The woman who'd written this letter bore little resemblance to the one who'd brought her lover to our anniversary dinner, or stalked him after their relationship ended. This, Lisa seemed genuinely committed to understanding and changing her destructive patterns. "I think I do want to respond. Not to resume any kind of relationship, but to acknowledge her efforts to take responsibility and wish her well in her recovery." I wrote a brief, polite response expressing hope for her continued healing and thanking her for taking the time to acknowledge the impact of her actions. It felt like closing a chapter that had been left open too long. A year later, Thompson Construction completed the Morrison Group's largest West Coast development project, ahead of schedule and under budget. The success led to an expansion that required us to hire 50 new employees and open a second office in Seattle. Monica's innovations in pediatric care had been so successful that she was invited to speak at national conferences and consult with hospitals across the country. Her approach to family-centered care had become a model that other institutions were eager to implement. We were both thriving professionally, but more importantly, we were building the kind of personal life neither of us had thought possible. We traveled together, pursued shared hobbies, maintained our individual friendships and interests, and faced challenges as a team rather than as competitors. On the 3rd anniversary of our first meeting at the Rose Garden, we returned to the restaurant for dinner. Steve and Patricia joined us, and we spent the evening reflecting on how much our lives had changed. "I have some news," Monica announced over dessert. "Good news, I hope?" Steve asked. Monica took my hand and smiled. "The best news. We're going to have a baby." The joy that filled our private dining room was infectious. Steve and Patricia offered congratulations and champagne toasts, sharing stories about their own children and grandchildren. As the evening wound down, I found myself thinking about how this moment compared to that devastating anniversary dinner 3 years earlier. Then, I'd been trapped in a marriage built on deception and disrespect, watching my wife choose another man over me in the most public way possible. Tonight, I was celebrating the expansion of a family built on love, trust, and mutual respect with the woman who'd become my best friend and closest partner. The transformation felt miraculous, but I knew it wasn't magic. It was the result of choosing to value ourselves enough to demand better, to recognize real love when we found it, and to build something authentic rather than accepting a hollow imitation. As we drove home that night, Monica's hand resting on her still flat belly, I felt grateful for every painful step that had led us to this moment of joy and possibility. Sometimes the worst thing that can happen to you is actually the best thing that can happen to you if you're brave enough to see it clearly and wise enough to learn from it. The anniversary dinner that destroyed my first marriage had given me everything I'd never known I was missing. And as we pulled into the driveway of our home, preparing to add a new member to our family, I couldn't have been more grateful for the journey that brought us here. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.